Okay, so um, let's just unpack this right away because today's deep dive is honestly gonna mess with your head a bit.
In the best possible way, of
Yeah,
course.
in the absolute best way. We're looking at a connection today that, on paper at least, really shouldn't exist.
Right. It sounds totally absurd at first glance.
It does, because normally when we talk about the Matrix, we're pulling from, French postmodernists like Baudrillard, or we're talking about modern simulation
Some
theory.
standard sci-fi philosophy stuff.
Exactly. But the stack of sources we brought in today takes a hard left turn. We are not looking at modern tech philosophy,
No, we're going back to a 13th century Islamic mystic living in Andalusia.
which is just wild.
It sounds like the setup to a really strange joke, right? Like a Sufi mystic and Keanu Reeves walk into a bar.
Seriously.
But when you actually lay the source material side by side, specifically the metaphysics of Ibn Arabi and the script of the Matrix, the resonance is almost eerie.
It is.
It's not just a vibe, it is a structural match.
I mean, I went through the notes you shared on Ibn Arabi, who, by the way, is arguably one of the most complex philosophers in history. And then I rewatched the scenes with the Oracle, and it's uncanny.
Totally uncanny.
And we're also throwing in some heavy concepts today from quantum physics, like wave-particle duality and retrocausality.
Just to keep the stakes high.
Right. And then, just to contrast all of this, we're bringing in Frank Herbert's Dune.
The mission here is pretty specific for you guys listening. We aren't just comparing pop culture to ancient philosophy just for the fun of it.
Right.
We are trying to tackle, honestly, the oldest, most headache-inducing question in the book, which is free will versus destiny.
Yeah, because usually we think of those as complete opposites.
A zero-sum game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like either I choose what I'm having for breakfast or the universe chose it for me and I'm just this puppet playing out a script.
Right.
But the sources today are suggesting a third way. They're pointing to this non-linear reality where you aren't actually here to make a choice.
But to understand why you already made it?
Yes. That line from The Matrix Reloaded is the absolute perfect hook for this.
It really is.
Neo is sitting on that park bench with the Oracle right, and he's agonizing over whether he's going to have to save Trinity or save Zion.
And she just shuts him down entirely.
She tells him, you are not here to make the choice.
Yeah.
You've already made it. You're here to try to understand why you made it.
Which the first time you watch the movie, it just sounds like, I don't know, cryptic fortune cookie wisdom.
Yeah, there's classic movie mystic stuff.
But this is actually a direct parallel to Ibn Arabi's view of reality from 800 years ago. This is the logic of pre-existence.
So let's dig into that right now. Ibn Arabi has this concept called ayan al-thabita, right?
Correct. So that translates roughly to fixed prototypes or immutable essences.
Okay.
And the idea here is that before you were ever born into this physical world, before you had a body or a name or a job, you existed as a possibility in the divine mind.
So I wasn't just a blank slate waiting to be drawn on. I was already me conceptually.
You were a highly specific idea. And here is the really crucial part that links back to free will. In that state of potential, your essence actually asked to be manifested in a specific way.
Wow.
You essentially requested your life. Arabi has this famous saying that the receiver dictates what he receives.
It totally flips the script on victimhood, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Because it implies that everything happening to you, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the random traffic jams, it isn't something the universe is just inflicting on you against your will.
Right.
It's actually the manifestation of a choice your own essence made in eternity.
Exactly. But to really grasp that, you have to look at how Arabi and also the Oracle view time itself.
Okay.
We down here see time as linear, past, present, future. But Arabi argued that for the creator, or if we're talking about the Matrix, the view from the source time is a single instantaneous pulse.
The eternal now.
Yes, the eternal now.
So the sources mentioned a movie reel analogy, which I think is classic. But honestly, given we're talking about the Matrix, I feel like a video game analogy might work a bit better here.
Oh, I like that. Go on.
Think of it like the actual game code on a disk.
Okay.
So the entire game code is already written on the disk right now.
Okay.
The fixed prototypes are the levels, the boss fights, the ending cutscene.
Right.
They all exist simultaneously on that disk before you even turn the console on. They're static. They're finished.
That is a perfect way to view it. The code is the ayan al-thabita.
But when I press start, I, as the player, have to experience that code linearly. I have to walk through level 1 to get to level 2.
Yes.
So from the perspective of the game developer, the choice to open the door at the end of the level is already written in the code. But to me, the player, it feels like a totally spontaneous decision I'm making in the moment.
Precisely. And this is why the Oracle says you are here to understand why you made the choice.
Yeah.
The understanding happens in linear gameplay.
Right.
But the choice itself was written into the code of your character before the game even launched.
The way this kind of brings us back to the trap, right?
How so?
Because if the code is already written, aren't we just NPCs, non-player characters? Do we actually have any agency, or are we just executing a script? Because that sounds a little depressing.
I get that, but both Ibn Arabi and the Oracle would say, no, we definitely aren't puppets. And this is where Arabi proposes that third way we mentioned earlier.
The al-Khaz concept.
Yes, al-Khaz, which translates to acquisition.
See, this is the trickiest part of the reading for me. Acquisition sounds like a corporate legal term.
It really does sound dry, but it's deeply mystical. The basic gist is this. Destiny isn't external. You are your destiny.
Okay.
While the events of your life are destined because they're written in the fixed prototypes, you, quote-unquote, acquire responsibility for them by aligning your will with them.
So if I choose to drink coffee over tea this morning, it was destined because it is the fundamental nature of my essence to choose coffee.
Yes, exactly. Your choice is the cause of the destiny, not the victim of it. It creates this beautiful loop. You aren't being forced to do anything. You are just acting out your own deepest nature.
That makes a lot of sense.
Think about it. If you were forced to do something against your nature, that would be a lack of free will. But if you are doing exactly what you want to do, and what you want to do was known eternally, is that compulsion? Or is it ultimate freedom?
Man, that connects perfectly to Neo's arc.
Yeah.
Because he spends the whole first movie asking, am I the one? Am I the one?
And the Oracle never gives him a straight answer.
Right. She doesn't. She lets him figure it out for himself. She
Right.
essentially lets him acquire the destiny on his own.
She lets him align his local will with his eternal code. And that naturally brings us to the next big layer of this deep dive.
Let's do it.
Because Neo isn't just a generic action hero. His journey perfectly mirrors a very specific Sufi concept called al-insan al-kamil.
The perfect human.
Yes, the perfect human.
Now, in Western terms, that sounds like, I don't know, someone who never makes mistakes and has great teeth and a perfect credit score.
Right, a literal Boy Scout.
But in Sufi metaphysics, it's more of a cosmic function, isn't it?
It is. It's not about moral perfection at all. Arabi says the perfect human is a microcosm, an alam sagir, meaning they contain the entire universe within themselves.
Which maps directly to that iconic moment in the first movie. Neo stops running from the agents in the hallway. He turns around, looks down the hall, and suddenly he doesn't see walls or floor tiles anymore.
He sees the code.
He sees the cascading green code everywhere. He realizes the simulation isn't this cage he's trapped in. It's something that is being projected within his own perception.
Exactly. That is the realization of the microcosm. He internalizes the macrocosm. And by doing that, he becomes what Arabi calls the barzakh.
The isthmus or the bridge.
Yes. The bridge connecting the source, which would be the divine, or in the movie The Mainframe, with the created world of the Matrix. He exists in both realms simultaneously.
And that totally explains his superpowers. Well, when he flies or stops bullets mid-air, he isn't actually breaking the laws of physics. He's just overriding the local laws with the higher law of the source.
Spot on. In the context of our source material, it's him manifesting divine names or the pure will of the source.
Right.
Because he is connected to the source, his will becomes identical to the lawmaker's will. He isn't hacking the system. He is the system's administrator.
That is such a powerful transition. It's moving from what Arabi calls the animal man, which is Thomas Anderson just living for biological needs, paying taxes, eating noodles.
Paying his rent.
Yeah, to the perfect human who knows the reality behind the veil.
And remember what the architect tells Neo in the second film.
Oh man, the architect scene. He says you are essential for the reloading of the Matrix.
Yes. He says if Neo doesn't return to the source, the entire system crashes. And Ibn Arabi says the exact same thing about the perfect human. Yes. Arabi claims the universe only continues to exist because the perfect human is in it, acting as the lens for God to see the world. If that bridge were removed, the universe would just collapse like a body without a soul.
Wow. So Neo's entire path, taking the red pill, fighting the agents, is basically what Sufis would call Tariqa, the spiritual path.
It is this.
And his end. In the third movie, when he finally goes to the machine city and sacrifices himself.
That is fauna, annihilation into the source. He merges back into the absolute. He completely gives up his individual ego to become a pure vessel.
That is so profound. But our source stack actually takes a sharp turn here.
It does. We're jumping from 13th century mysticism to something very, very modern.
Quantum physics.
Yeah.
Because honestly, the more I read about quantum mechanics, the more it just sounds like Sufism with better math.
It really does. People call it mathematical mysticism for a reason. And if you think about it, quantum mechanics provides the actual technical manual for how all this pre-made choice stuff works.
Let's break that down for everyone listening. Wave-particle duality is the cornerstone here.
It absolutely is. In quantum physics, a particle like an electron exists initially as a wave of probability. It is everywhere and nowhere all at once.
Right.
It only becomes a specific particle when it is measured or observed by someone.
So how does that map to our fixed prototypes?
Think of Ibn Arabi's essences, those eternal possibilities hanging out in the divine mind as the wave function. They are the cloud of everything you could possibly be. The total probability.
She's the oracle. She's the one who can see the wave.
Exactly. The oracle sees the wave. She sees the totality of Neo's essence, all his probabilities. But when Neo steps into the room and starts to understand why he is collapsing that wave into a particle.
He's collapsing eternity into experience.
Yes, beautifully put.
That gives a whole new dimension to the observer effect. Because the standard physics definition is just that measuring a system changes it.
Right.
But here we're saying the universe or the matrix is this blurred mirror of probabilities until the conscious observer actually looks at it.
Yes. By becoming the perfect human, Neo becomes the self-conscious observer. He stops being just a program, which is essentially just a deterministic particle, and becomes the architect of the collapse himself. He decides how the wave resolves.
And this leads us to that word that always completely melts my brain. Entanglement.
Oh yeah, quantum entanglement, which basically means two things are connected across space and time instantaneously.
Right.
Ibn Arabi views the creator and the created as entangled states of one single reality. Al-Batin the hidden and Al-Zahir the manifest.
So Neo and the source are literally entangled.
They are. His choice at the end wasn't some random roll of the dice. It was the inevitable spin of a particle that was already intimately connected to the source.
This connects perfectly to something else in the sources that I found just absolutely fascinating. Retrocausality.
Oh, yes. This is where we really have to challenge our linear thinking.
The basic idea that we aren't actually being pushed by our past, but we are being pulled by our future.
Exactly. In classical physics, the past always causes the future. I kick a ball, the ball moves. Cause and effect.
Right.
But in quantum retrocausality, the future state of a system can actually influence the past.
So how does that apply to us, to this idea of the perfected self?
Well, Ibn Arabi uses a concept called al-inzilaq, which translates to sliding.
Sliding, okay.
Imagine your perfected self, the version of you that has already learned all the lessons already achieved. Fauna already become the one exists at the very end of time.
Okay, I'm visualizing that.
That future you is acting like a massive magnet. A strange attractor in chaos theory terms, it is constantly exerting a gravitational pull on your present self.
So when I have a strong intuition about something,
It's not a guess.
it's a transmission.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a signal from the region of you that has already succeeded. You feel pulled to do something not because of logic or past data, but because your future self is saying, hey, this is the exact path we took.
Oh man, the vase scene. We have to talk about the vase scene in the first Matrix.
The ultimate retrocausal loop.
It is the textbook example. The Oracle says to Neo, don't worry about the vase. And Neo says, what vase? And he turns around to look, and he knocks it over and breaks it.
And then she hits him with the real mind bender. She says, what's really going to bake your noodle later on is, would you still have broken it if I hadn't said anything?
Exactly. The information from the future, which was the Oracle's knowledge of the broken vase, actually caused the past event of him breaking it.
The future was pulling the present.
So bringing this all back to the core mission of this deep dive.
Yeah.
You already made the choice, because in the quantum field, your story is just a complete, solid block.
Yes.
You are just the local consciousness traveling through it.
You are quite literally a memory of your future.
That sounds oddly comforting in a way. Like if the magnet is there, I just have to relax and trust the pull.
Right.
But we do have to pump the brakes here and look at the dark side of this.
If you do.
Because our source stack includes Dune, and Frank Herbert plays with these exact same Sufi terms, but with a much scarier outcome.
He really does. Herbert was deeply, deeply influenced by Islamic mysticism, but he essentially serves as the warning label on the bottle of prescience.
In Dune, Paul Atreides is called Lisan al-Gaib, which literally means the tongue of the unseen.
Right.
He's a channel for the hidden dimension, just like the perfect human, But for Paul, seeing the future, seeing those fixed prototypes, isn't liberating at all like it is for Neo. It's an absolute nightmare.
It's a trap for him. Paul has prescience. He sees the paths, the wave functions of the future. He sees this massive holy war, this jihad spreading across the entire universe in his name.
Right.
But here's the ultimate tragedy of Dune. The very moment he looks at that future, he collapses the wave.
By foreseeing it, he locks it in.
Exactly. This is the sheer horror of the observer effect in Herbert's universe. Paul tries desperately to find a path to avoid the violence, but every single time he looks, he narrows the probabilities down.
Until the violence becomes the only path left.
Yes. He becomes a complete victim of his own perfected self.
The Kwisatz Haderach, the shortening of the way. He sees the destination, and that sight forces him to take the journey whether he wants to or not.
And notice the stark difference in attitude between Paul and Neo here.
Yeah.
Neo accepts the why. He accepts his function. He ultimately surrenders to the source.
Right.
Paul completely resists the why. He fights his terrible purpose every single step of the way.
So the distinction between being a savior and a tyrant, or between finding peace and torment, is just sort of this.
Paul resists and he finds exile. Neo accepts and he finds peace. Becoming the one can be total liberation or a terrible prison, depending entirely on whether you can surrender to the destiny your essence chose.
That is such a crucial nuance. It's not just about having the awareness or the power.
Yeah.
It's about actively aligning your will with it.
Right. Resistance creates the suffering.
Okay, so we've covered 13th century mystics, we've covered code-breaking saviors, and we've covered sandworms.
Those are covered a lot of ground.
We have. But what does this all mean for the person listening right now? The person who maybe just needs to decide whether to take a new job or stay put or move to a new city. How do we apply retrocausality on a random Tuesday?
We can actually make this very highly practical for daily life. We can start by simply shifting our primary question from what should I do to why did I do this?
Walk us through the heart-centered muraqabah that was mentioned in the sources.
Sure. So muraqabah basically means vigilant awareness. Arabi says the human heart is a polished mirror.
Okay.
So the practice is to sit quietly, and instead of doing the standard meditation thing where you try to empty your mind of all thoughts, try to fill it.
Fill it with what?
Fill it with the profound feeling of that perfected presence.
The future you who is already whole.
Right. Connect deeply to that specific feeling. And then you can use what we call the future back query.
How does that work?
When you have a really tough decision to make, imagine you are 10 years in the future looking back at this exact moment. You are happy. You are fully resolved. You don't ask, what should I choose right now? Right.
You ask your future self, why did we make this choice?
It completely changes the tense. You assume the choice is already made.
It changes the tense and the underlying physics of the thought.
Yeah.
You assume the wave has already collapsed safely. Then you just listen to your body.
What are you listening for?
Does making that assumption create a feeling of expansion or contraction? Does it create physical stillness or anxiety? The body almost always receives the retrocausal signal long before the logical mind does.
Wow. The sources also mention something called a delayed choice meditation.
Oh, this one is fun. It's all about purposefully keeping the wave function open. You mentally send a clear request to your future self for guidance, and then you just let it go completely.
You stop obsessing over it.
Exactly. You drop it and you look for coincidences in your daily life. You start looking for the strange attractor pulling you toward a specific outcome.
It's like trusting that the game code is already written perfectly, so you can just relax and enjoy playing the level. Precisely. You stop trying to violently force the particle into existence and you just let the wave guide you.
I love that. And there's one more exercise we need to hit, the mirror. I actually tried this one myself this morning after reading the brief.
Oh, really? How did it go?
It's a little trippy, to be honest. But the idea is next time you look in a mirror, you try to completely shift your perspective. You don't just look at your face, which is the temporary particle, right?
Right.
You look deeply into your own eyes and realize the reflection you're seeing is actually a memory of the future. It's the perfected human unfolding in real time.
It totally shifts your sense of identity, doesn't it?
It really does.
You aren't just this physical person growing older day by day. You are an eternal essence that is simply unfolding. It's such a powerful way to anchor yourself back in that eternal now.
That is a brilliant image to leave people with today. I mean, we have gone from the divine mind to digital code, from the harsh deserts of Arrakis to the mirror in your own bathroom.
It's definitely a lot to take in for one sitting.
But if we boil it all down, it's actually a deeply comforting thought. Destiny isn't some rigid script written by a stranger in the sky. It is the wave function of your own absolute deepest nature.
Exactly.
You aren't being forced to live this life. You are here to understand why you, the absolute deepest, most eternal version of you, wanted to be here in the exact first place.
Couldn't have said it better.
So here is our final provocative thought for you to chew on today. If your perfected self is truly waiting at the end of time, acting as a massive magnet, what is one thing you feel pulled to do right now, not because it makes logical sense on paper, but because it feels like a memory of who you are becoming?
Just trust the pull.
Polish your mirror, everyone. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. We'll catch you in the next one.